morning. It is Friday, November 7th, 2014. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, amidst rising tensions, Prime Minister Netanyahu assures Jordan's King Abdullah that Israel has no plans to change the status quo at Jerusalem's Temple Mount compound by allowing Jewish prayers there. The European Union's new foreign policy chief, Federica Mogherini, and Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman meet for the first time in Jerusalem today. And later on the show, all about the Photo House, the unofficial Tel Aviv archive shop with rare photos of Israel. Good morning, I'm Yael Levi. We begin with the latest from Jerusalem. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu moved to ease tensions at Jerusalem's most sensitive holy site yesterday, calling Jordan's King Abdullah to reassert his commitment to protecting the sacred shrines in hopes of quieting weeks of unrest. His outreach came a day after Jordan, a key ally of Israel, recalled its ambassador to protest what it called an unacceptable Israeli police assault on the Hilltop compound in Jerusalem's Old City. Tensions were further heightened after a Palestinian slammed his van into a crowd waiting at a train stop, killing an Israeli policeman. And as we're hearing this morning, also another young man injured in that attack has died overnight. And later on, Hamas, of course, said it is taking not responsibility, but welcoming that attack. So everybody's in the play and the mix, so to speak. Today, Friday, always a day of possible tensions. All eyes are on Temple Mount and the city of Jerusalem. And to hear the latest update from the scene, we are joined on phone by Chief Inspector of the Israeli Police, Foreign Press spokesperson, Mickey Rosenfeld. Mickey, good morning to you.
Good morning.
So I'm assuming a lot of extra security leading up to Friday prayers. And what is the situation in the city this morning?
Security assessments were made late last night. Extra police units are in fact in Jerusalem, border police, special patrol units in the different areas. There's also an age limit which has been implemented on the Temple Mount today in order to prevent any incidents whatsoever. Only men from the age of 35. So there'll be a lot of security in and around Jerusalem and different Israeli Arab neighborhoods. And we're hoping that things will be relatively calm and there won't be any incidents that we'll have to respond to.
Now, when you're saying we're hoping things are going to be relatively calm, has there been made any kind of precautions? Men of an older age allowed to come in and pray in Haram al-Sharif? Anything put in place in that manner?
As I confirmed, only men over the age of 35 are allowed on the Temple Mount for this afternoon Friday prayers, men of all ages. Our main emphasis will be in and around the Old City with extra police units. I can confirm there was only one incident that took place yesterday evening in the neighborhood of Jabal Mukaba, where police responded and dispersed some rioters. Apart from that, this morning in Jerusalem, things are relatively calm, and our police units are in and around the different areas. All right.
Mickey, thank you so much for joining us this morning. As we said, all eyes are on Jerusalem. We are joined in studio by Channel 2 Arab Affairs editor Yaron Schneider. Yaron, good morning to you. And also by spokesperson for the Israeli Foreign Ministry, Mr. Paul Hirson. Good morning to you as well. Now, before we break this down, let's take a look at the latest from Jerusalem.
An unusual development Thursday morning, with Israeli authorities backtracking. What was originally thought to be a terrorist attack involving yet another Palestinian-driven vehicle was actually nothing more than an accident. Around noontime today, a Palestinian by the name of Hammam Masalma contacted Israeli security officials and admitted to running over 3 IDF soldiers near Al Arub in the West Bank last night. Masalma was arrested and taken for further questioning, with the interrogation supposedly revealing that the incident was in fact a hit-and-run accident and not a terrorist attack. Even before Masalma had turned himself in, a search had been conducted at his home in a village near Hebron, reportedly resulting in the arrest of up to 3 family members. The incident took place along this road, which runs between Jerusalem and Hebron, near a well-known guard post. The soldiers were standing on the side of the road when the vehicle veered to the right at high speed and pummeled into them. One of the soldiers was seriously injured, the 2 others characterized as medium grade. The incident came at the end of a particularly violent and tense day. Riots broke out in the Shoafat refugee camp in East Jerusalem, with Palestinian youths clashing with Israeli border police. One officer was slightly injured after being struck by a Molotov cocktail. Earlier in central Jerusalem, a policeman was killed and 13 others injured in a terror attack involving a vehicle driven by a Hamas operative who was shot and killed at the scene. With tensions high, it is perhaps unsurprising that some incidents are mistakenly interpreted, a state of confusion which will hopefully pass.
As said, we are joined in studio by Yaron Schneider, Channel 2 Arab Affairs correspondent. Thank you for joining us this morning. You know, we looked at the attacks over the course of the last 48 hours, 24 hours, Again, as we mentioned, there is another casualty. The young boy who was injured was killed. But I'm looking at the headlines this morning, and it seems like the Israeli intelligence has been warning Netanyahu over and over again that Jerusalem is very explosive. We've been sitting here several days discussing, is this a third intifada or isn't it?
Okay. So right now, the situation there is quite volatile. Things are tense for days and even weeks. But I think that we should put things in their appropriate context.
Okay.
Things have actually escalated even before the war in Gaza, and it's been an ongoing escalation that is being actually strengthened by both the Palestinian and the Israeli sides, we have to admit. It's actually an ongoing unrest which is based on fight over the rights to go up to the Temple Mount and pray there by Jews who actually brought Palestinians who are there, the Waqf, the Muslim that hold the rights of prayer on the Temple Mount, to be very angry on that. And that's why things escalated. It all started in the Temple Mount. Well, currently, I think we can see a pattern that is relevant for all the last attacks in Jerusalem. They were all done by people who were not part of an organization, although they say that they are some kind of affiliate exactly of Hamas or Fatah movements. They were all made without any premeditation, as like spontaneous attacks. And also they are all concentrated in the area of the eastern city. Unlike what happened in the beginning of the 2000s when the Intifada erupted. So what I think is that it can be considered by some as a new Intifada, without truly being that way so far. It's a very tense unrest, and people are trying to calm it, although some might say that there are those who are the spoilers of the efforts. But for sure you can say that nothing is going in the direction that according to which things started in the beginning of the Intifada in 2001.
But when we look at at what's going on in East Jerusalem, and here's my question to you: does the Arab fingers keep being pointed by the Israeli administration at Mahmoud Abbas, saying he has to take responsibility, that it's all his incitement, etc., etc. This is not an organized form, is this?
Indeed. And Abu Mazen was playing actually a double role.
How so?
He was committed to calling to the end of violence, although he actually took part in this campaign of trying to avoid Jewish pilgrims or Jewish prayers to go up to the Temple Mount, and he also called to resist that. He was very outspoken, but I think that his interest currently is not to let things be dragged into a mass violence, because this only plays to the hands of Hamas. And Hamas is actually playing a very big role behind the scenes here, because it's the fight between the two strategies. The strategy of Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen, is to try to not to negotiate, but to fight with Israel in diplomatic methods, like his plan to go to the Security Council, etc. While Hamas is, of course, the defender or the supporter of the resistance, of the military resistance, and he's only gaining power on the street by supporting and letting this demonstration and the attacks continue and become larger.
Now, but when Hamas, when you say that they're playing a bigger role, when they take, it's not responsibility. We had actually an argument, a journalistic argument about Hamas and the attack, the terror attack in Jerusalem 2 days ago, is that they did not really take responsibility. They welcomed it.
Exactly.
Because had they taken responsibility, I'm assuming Israeli planes would have been above Gaza.
This is a welcome attack, but about all what we've seen, actually, they had like a very similar pattern of response. They say that they bless the attack, but they don't claim responsibility, as you said. And it's not because they don't want to take responsibility, it's because they simply can't.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
They're members of parliament, just to mention that, Mahmoud Abu Tir and others, they were dispelled out of Jerusalem by the order of the Israeli court because of the fears that they'll try to arrange an intifada. Right. And that's why they can't practically act as can be expected in Jerusalem. They only try to drag the street into fights.
Into fighting. Now, the Jerusalem issue is not just at the heart of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it's also at the heart of Israel's, relationship with the rest of the Arab world. And earlier this week, Jordan recalled its ambassador to Israel in protest against what it described as Israeli violations in Jerusalem and its holy sites. Yesterday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as you mentioned, called King Abdullah of Jordan, spoke on the phone to end the violence and incitement. And to further discuss this, of course, we're in the studio with the spokesman of the Israeli Foreign Ministry, Paul Hirson. Paul, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Before we start this, I want to take a look at a report about what happened between Israel and Jordan and this fateful phone call. Let's take a look.
20 years after the first peace agreement was signed between Israel and Jordan, the two countries are facing one of the worst crises in their short mutual history. Jordan decided to recall its ambassador in Tel Aviv in response to the escalation of the violence on the Temple Mount during the last few weeks. The Jordanian also planned to submit an official complaint to the UN Security Council.
We noticed that there has been more than 200 Israeli soldiers raided the Haram Sharif. And this is something we condemn strongly, and we don't accept at any circumstances.
It's no wonder that the situation in Temple Mount sparked more outrage in Jordan than other Israeli-Arab disputes. The Temple Mount has been the cornerstone of the division between Israel and Jordan for many years. After the 1948-1949 Arab-Israel War, it fell under Jordanian control. In 1951, Jordanian King Abdullah I was assassinated during a visit in Temple Mount by Palestinian terrorists, an event that opened up a long-lasting dispute between the Hashemite tribe dominating Jordan and the Palestinians. In 1967, the Temple Mount was captured by Israel during the Six-Day War, but the Israeli government decided to keep the Jordanian Waqf in charge of the Al-Aqsa Mosque to prevent a further escalation. Unfortunately, this did not prevent riot, which broke up sporadically.
So we have sent repeated messages to Israel directly and indirectly that Jerusalem is a red line, and these continuous violations and incursions and stopping people from worshipping freely and allowing extremists to come in under the protection of Israeli police and so many other violations. Yeah.
The Israeli-Jordanian peace treaty signed in 1994 promised to give Jordan high priority in the holy shrines in Jerusalem when permanent status negotiations take place. But with a permanent solution far from sight, Jordan's role on the Temple Mount remains sensitive and uncertain.
We're joined in the studio by Israeli Foreign Minister and spokesperson Paul Hirson. So the Jordanian thing was very troubling. When the ambassador is being recalled, and clearly Jordan has a stake also in Temple Mount, we're getting to a point where even the Israeli existing peace, treaties with surrounding Arab countries are faltering.
I don't know if I agree with you on that. I do agree that the situation is very serious, and it's clear that Jordan has very significant interests, emotional and spiritual and administrative, in the Temple Mount. But on the other hand, we have very, very significant intimate relations with Jordan, which go across quite a wide spectrum of conversation. Now,
but this was a very tense moment between the two countries. I mean, it's clear.
Yes, absolutely. It's clear that the Jordanians are upset by what they perceive on an emotional level to be some sort of a disruption in the status on the Temple Mount, to which they have interests. On an intellectual, cognitive level, they are 100% aware of the fact that Israel has no intention and will not change the status quo. And that's the meeting point of the intellect and the emotion which is causing the conflict.
I love you, but that's a psychological breakdown of what's going on. At the end of the day, Prime Minister Netanyahu has people sitting in his coalition okay, that are calling for the change of the status quo of Temple Mount. So how can a country that's sitting next to Israel know what is real and what is not?
Well, a couple of things here. First of all,
Right.
I'm not a political analyst, okay, but what I can say to you is we're kind of proud of the fact that we have a democracy and freedom of speech and people can say what they want. But the policy
But
of
as
the
we know,
government...
in the Middle East, when you say anything you want, sometimes it's considered as incitement. That's the other thing.
There's a price to pay for democracy. I think that we prefer to remain a democracy. The policy of the government of the State of Israel, as presented repetitively, publicly and privately by the Prime Minister of the State of Israel, is that there is no change and there will be no change in the status quo. And I think that everybody knows that on a cognitive level. The problem is that their emotional beliefs come in and call into question their own intellectual understanding of the reality.
Okay, and we are going to go now also to Tal Shalev, I-24 News diplomatic correspondent, who is with us in Jerusalem leading up to a meeting between Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman and the new European Union Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini. That's later on today. But Tal, first of all, to you, as you were speaking in the studio right now, there is an understanding, supposedly, that Israel is not going to change the status quo of Jerusalem's Temple Mount. That said, in his cabinet, in his coalition, a lot of people are angry, and this morning there are even reports and rumors and analysis that Bennett is even beginning to start his his coming out of the coalition, if one is to believe anything that's written in the Israeli newspapers. Where does that stand this morning?
Well, the Israeli Prime Minister has been going out of his way in the past 24 hours to try and clarify that the official position of the Israeli government is not to make any changes to the status quo on Temple Mount, trying to bring down the flames and trying to bring down the flames not only with Jordan but also with Egypt and with other senior members of the international community. And this, of course, will be one of the top issues today in the meeting between the Prime Minister and the EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini, who is arriving for Israel for the first time just a few days after taking office and replacing Baroness Catherine Ashton. But Netanyahu does have a problem with some of his senior members in his party. Even though Netanyahu has been calling on them to show restraint and to demonstrate responsibility, not to go on to Temple Mount, even after he issued these calls, lawmakers from his own party did continue, some of them even with official titles inside the government, such as the Deputy Transportation Minister Tzipi Hotovely, who did visit the Temple Mount this week and did vow that she will work to re-enable the Jewish prayer and Jewish access on Temple Mount. So that is why Netanyahu is going out of his way, trying to reiterate this cause to the international community, and it will probably be coming up at the meeting today too.
Now, and when it comes to Jerusalem and Jordan, and Netanyahu and Jordan, as we have Paul Hirschland with us, has that issue been resolved?
Well, yesterday Netanyahu did have a talk with Abdullah, a phone call, did speak with King Abdullah. It seemed like maybe it did at the moment lower the tensions in many ways, because at the end of the call, the Prime Minister's office did publish a statement saying that both Abdullah and Netanyahu issued a joint call to lower the level of violence and to put an immediate halt to violence and incitement. Nevertheless, the Jordanian ambassador has not been yet sent back to Tel Aviv, so still the tensions are mounting, and of course everyone is following to see what will happen in the upcoming days.
Okay, and finally, where you are today, and you're previewing that, the new European Union Foreign Policy Chief wants to see a Palestinian state in 5 years. Is that something that Avigdor Lieberman is going to address?
Well, actually, Jerusalem is quite anticipating the entry of Mogherini to the new job. They're quite optimistic. Mogherini has been serving as the Italian foreign minister and has been visiting the region, has already been in Israel in July during Operation Protective Edge. And she also just met with the foreign minister, Avigdor Lieberman, just a short while ago, last month in Rome. And they actually do have already a working relationship, one that is defined by Lieberman's blockade as quite constructive and positive. So it's true that Mogherini is coming at a very tense time at EU-Israel relations. The EU is losing patience, growing impatience, and is threatening with sanctions. We have been hearing recurring threats of sanctions in the past few months regarding Israel's settlement policy. But nevertheless, Jerusalem is anticipating a new start with the new EU foreign policy chief, and this will start today. Tomorrow she will be continuing. She will also be dedicating quite a significant time to the Palestinian side. She will be traveling to Gaza, and Mogherini will be finishing her trip in the region in a visit to the Palestinian Authority, where she will be meeting both with the Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah and the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas.
Tal Shalev, thank you for joining us from Jerusalem. As we mentioned, coming up later today, Avigdor Lieberman and European Union's new foreign policy chief, Federica Mogherini, will be meeting, issuing statements later on this morning. We'll bring you that. Paul Hirson, back to you. And I'm glad that we also still have Joran Schneider with us in the studio. When we look at that statement by Mogherini, okay, that she wants to see a Palestinian state within 5 years, other than what I'm assuming will be the stock response of, well, it depends on the other side, but is that even a viable thing as we're looking at what's happening in Jerusalem? Granted, Joran Schneider basically said that this is not a full-blown intifada. I tend to agree with you on that. It's pinpointed, but still, it's the holiest place with tensions that are leading up to a blow-up. And two sides not speaking. Are there any type of moves, if you're coming from the foreign ministry, to go back to the negotiating table?
Look, we have said clearly that we're keen to get back to the negotiating table. We've said it repetitively throughout the summer during the fighting, and then the Prime Minister has said it since then. We're absolutely willing and ready to go back to the negotiating table. That's the only place that this conflict is going to be resolved. The question that you ask me is not one that should be asked of me. It's one that should be asked of President Abbas of the Palestinians. The question really is, are they too, not only us, but also us, are they too ready to make those difficult compromises that they too are going to have to make for us to be able to resolve this conflict? Now, that doesn't mean only them. That means also us, but it means also them. And that is the real dilemma we face at this point. When and how do we get the Palestinians, we, the international community, including Israel, to the point that they accept, they don't have to necessarily like, the same as us, that they too are not going to get everything that they want?
Is there a lack of understanding, though, I'm wondering, Joran Schneider, when it comes to Mahmoud Abbas, because all these calls to have him come out and condemn actions and come out against the violence, is that something unrealistic expected from a person who's trying to hold together a unity government that is at odds ideologically? I mean, he has to survive himself, I'm wondering.
That's right, and his personal survival is a big issue that Abu Mazen has to deal with. I think that it's an impossible mission, what he got, to keep his government united and keep all the declarations of both Hamas and Fatah similar. In this situation, they are in a fight, they are in a struggle, and I'm afraid that it will continue and will lead to the end of the so-called united Palestinian government or united leadership, because Hamas knows that sooner or later it will be judged in the elections that are supposed to be held according to the unity government agreement, and that's where they need to fight back Abu Mazen. That's where they need to show that they have an alternative, and their alternative, as I said before, is simply resisting Israel with military force. On these issues, they cannot agree with him, and he cannot let them do whatever they want. But I think that what Abu Mazen is pointing in his last speeches is that Israel has to be more committed, not only in speeches, but also in deeds, to the peace process. And that's what we hear in like echoes from both the King of Jordan, Abdullah, and from the Egyptian President Sisi. What they say is that the peace process should be renewed by talks between Israel and the Palestinians, not between negotiators to themselves. And according to that, I think that there will be an effort made by both the Americans, again, and the Egyptians and the Jordanians to try, to do something in terms of resuming the negotiations. It's nothing that has been tried since the end of the war in Gaza.
Right.
There was only a big conference in Egypt to
donate
help
money
the
to help the
Gazans
rebuild.
rebuild. But Israel was not part of it. They'll try to engage Israel into the process, try to resume the negotiations like that.
In a way that, they'll work. Finally, Paul Hirschman, I'm listening to all this, and, you're with the foreign ministry. This is not boding well, as you said. There's the cognitive and the emotional reaction, be it for Jordan. But this is in a week where even France, again, is now coming out stating that it's going to vote and recognizing Palestine unilaterally as a state. This all has to do with Jerusalem, in and around Jerusalem, which is an issue that is very emotional for everybody. This is not boding well for Israel's, image outside. At the end of the day, we're looking at a wave of, European countries who are looking to recognize Palestine as a state. What would be the reaction of the foreign ministry to that?
Well, I would say this is that the Prime Minister himself, Israel's Prime Minister, has repetitively said that the policy of the government of the State of Israel, among other things, is the establishment of a Palestinian Arab state. So there's no disagreement on substance, there's a disagreement on process. When European countries are coming up and telling the Palestinians essentially that they can get whatever they want without negotiating, that they can get everything that they want without compromising, they make conflict resolution less likely. They make it more difficult. So the difference we have with them is one of tactic, not of substance. We're saying to them what really should be happening right now is pressure should be put on the Palestinians to bring them back to the negotiating table and to explain to them that they too are going to have to make very difficult compromises. That way a deal will be done. There's a deal waiting to be done.
But what are the reactions then to European countries who don't heed to that, advice, so to speak, of the Israeli government? Give us the time to do the process, because the process is not moving along. I mean, isn't Israel losing friends on the European?
I don't know if Israel's losing friends. Look, it's true. There's a conversation out there, and the voices are very loud, both pro-Israel and anti-Israel. And the truth of the matter is that in between those two, you have probably 80% of the public who don't know about the conflict in the first place. We look very carefully at what's going on, and we're aware of shifts and changes in public opinion. Israel has very significant friends, not only in Europe and in the United States, but across the world. We've got dramatically improving relations with India, with Black Africa, with China.
Yeah, so we're looking at France and Britain,
we have very solid relations in Europe as well. That doesn't mean we agree on everything. It doesn't mean they don't challenge us on certain issues, but we have open and we have very real conversations, and we understand where the differences of opinion are. This is an issue which is very important to them. It's an issue which is even more important to us. We're the people living here in the neighborhood.
Something that, sometimes you also need to remember. But Paul Hirschman, also always a good chat and a good fight that you give me. Thank you for being here this morning. Thank you to you as well. And as you said, not necessarily a full-blown intifada, but a dangerous situation.
The next challenge is what we are supposed to witness in the Security Council. I think that this thing might really influence the other thing that is coming next. Yeah,
definitely. We're talking about Iran and all the and the coming up deals, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, as well. Thank you so much for being with us. And when we get back, U.S. President Barack Obama said that a framework deal was presented to Iran. We'll hear all about it and what we know about it. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. I-24 News. Thank you for staying with us. It is November. I always turn to you.
Well, it's 7-11.
It is 7-11.
Yeah.
It's 7-11.
Yeah,
so I've got Emily Landau here from the Yes. Tony Grant with all the news you missed. Yeah. Well, scanning the headlines.
Yes.
7-11. Only as few who had no money through college and lived at 7-Eleven.
Yes, may it long live and
that
prosper.
And their hot dogs.
7-Eleven.
L'chaim.
Yes. Well, speaking of things interesting, everyone's talking in the press about the Wall Street Journal's article, which dropped yesterday, which says that Obama wrote a secret letter to Iran's Khamenei about fighting Islamic State. Wow, this is a big deal because this is now apparently this is not the first correspondence that we've seen between Obama and Khamenei. We don't know if he wrote back.
It's one-sided.
It might be a little one-sided, but let's just say that this is saying that Obama apparently stressed that any cooperation on fighting Islamic State is contingent on Iran reaching that comprehensive agreement on the future of Tehran's nuclear program by the November 24th deadline. It's pressure. Will it work? Don't know. But again, the sources on this are also not
very clear. And I'm very glad that you brought this as the first headline because, as I mentioned, we do have Emily Landau of the INSS in studio for our next segment. But that, I saw you sent this to me also last night.
Right.
And when you look at something like that, there are all these arguments that that the United States cannot fight ISIS without Iran, and that doesn't bode very well for,
Well, it certainly doesn't. It's not a good idea to make that linkage when you're in the midst of a negotiation where you actually need your leverage.
And it's hard. And how can we gauge how threatened Iran feels by ISIS as well? Because it sort of implies that they feel a threat on some.
Yeah.
And of course,
it's a Sunni divide,
yes.
but it's lumping those things together.
It's complicated.
Okay,
diplomatic about that.
Break it down in a minute.
Yes. Also, The Guardian. Now, this is maybe not huge news to those of us in Israel at the moment. Internationally, it's of course made waves. The Guardian has here Netanyahu rejects calls to let Jews pray at Jerusalem holy site, referring, of course, to the Temple Mount. They run a lovely picture of Netanyahu not looking too happy. So, anyway.
Well, I'm glad you're saying this because we had, I was discussing this with the foreign spokesman, with the spokesman of the foreign ministry.
Yes.
Dyslexia is a horrible disease. And it's the thing that I think he's facing. Netanyahu is facing so much trouble within his coalition.
Yes, a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure. Many people go, no, you have to change the status quo. And I think maybe that's even the Guardian trying to help him out there a little bit.
In a bit,
in a way.
Visually.
Yes.
Anyway, so status quo goes for now. Did you see this headline from the New York Times? The ISIS wave of might is turning into a ripple. Well, listen, that's the headline. They don't deny in the article that a third of Iraq is now basically a battlefront. Okay, so ripple is maybe overstating it, but what they're saying is that maybe at this point, between the airstrikes, pushback from certain communities that should have been involved in the fights, that maybe that it's not as potent ISIS in that area at the moment as it was at the outset of hostilities. Are
they trying to push the idea that the airstrikes were helping?
I think that they might be.
It's a little bit of PR.
A little bit, and let's face it, the New York Times does tend to support Obama, and Obama, when it comes to domestic things faltering, presidents look overseas to build prestige. So,
case in point, Nixon.
And we'll come back to that in a second.
And there is the European Union's new foreign policy chief, Federica Mogherini, I'm being told, is actually in Jerusalem now. We're going to go live to Jerusalem, where the new chief inspector and the foreign minister, Avigdor Lieberman.
Ms. Mogherini,
there we go.
Israel, first official visit in your new capacity, and congratulations. It's a lot of responsibility and a huge challenge, and we're sure that we will know how to strengthen our bilateral relations. I'm sure that we know how to cooperate on all sensitive issues. Of course, we appreciate your very reasonable, very responsible statements in the last week in this very sensitive time. We think that it's necessary to downplay all the tensions, all incitement, all the frictions, especially in Jerusalem. Prime Minister clarified that we will respect the status quo. And of course, what we see in the last days include terrorist acts. It's a direct result of incitement from Ramallah, especially from Mahmoud Abbas. As a letter that he sent to the family of Islamic Jihad militant, it's clear support for, or clear call for the terrorist activity. It's completely unacceptable. And to speak frankly, I can only repeat that today it's clear strategic breakthrough in our bilateral relations with the Palestinians is possible only as a part of the regional comprehensive solution. We're ready for peace talks, we're ready for direct talks in any given time in in every place all around the world. And I think that the ball on their court. Thank you again and welcome to Jerusalem.
Thank you. My turn?
Yep.
As Minister said, this is my first visit outside of the European Union in my new capacity. I've had the chance of saying to the media, so to your colleagues, previous in the week, that I believe strongly that the European Union has a potential political role to play here, probably even higher and more important than it was in the past. The European Union stands at the side of Israel when it comes to its concerns about the security of the Israeli citizens. And we are ready and willing to work in the direction of not only resuming talks, but also making sure that talks bring to the two-state solution. In this path, new settlements are an obstacle as we see it, but we also see that there might be a political will, as Minister just stated, to resume the talks and especially make sure that these talks bring to results. That's for the sake of the security of the Israeli people, first of all. We discussed, and I very much share the vision of the Minister about the fact that there is the need for a regional approach. I believe that Israel's security and safety will never be guaranteed unless there is a regional framework that allows that fully. And the European Union is and will remain ready to work in this direction with all our partners in the region as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. First question, Ana Maria Esposito, Rai News 24.
I am ambitious, but I know very well what are, I wouldn't say the limits, but the resources that the European Union has. A lot we can do to support the steps that can be done both on the side of the Israeli security and on the side of the capacity of the Palestinian Authority to rule in the Palestinian territory. As you know, I will also visit Gaza and West Bank. Tomorrow I will discuss with the Palestinian Authority about this. You know, the risk of growing tensions here, being that in Jerusalem or in other parts of the country, and I would like to take the opportunity to express my condolences to the families of the victim. The risk is that if we do not move forward on the political track, we will go back and back again to violence here. That's why I see an urgency in moving forward on the dialogue and with a different outset. We have to make sure that out of the most dangerous regional framework that we have at the moment in the region, I think has never been so dangerous for Israel to live here. As this situation is so dramatic, there is also an opportunity because different actors in the region might share the perception of a threat that might require a common understanding. So I believe that exactly because there is a risk of growing tensions and going back to dramatic experiences, we desperately
Now, this is, as we said, European Union's new foreign policy chief, Federica Mogherini, and Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman meeting for the first time in Jerusalem. That is in a press conference that's happening right now, live, that you were looking at. Very interesting things said there, and I'm glad that we have Emily Landau here with us of the INSS, because you're here to discuss Iran, which we'll do quickly in a minute. But there we have, you know, the European Union's foreign policy new chief, Federica Mogherini, discussing the security of Israel.
Well, discussing the security of Israel, and I think what's interesting also is that both she and Lieberman were stressing a regional approach.
Exactly.
In other words, looking at the Israeli-Palestinian within the regional setting and understanding that there are a lot more security challenges right now in the Middle East, some connected but many not connected, and we really need desperately in the Middle East an approach that looks at the region as a whole.
Yes.
And is looking at the interlocking pieces. And I think that's quite interesting. It sounds a little bit
slightly different than
new.
Ashton, and a bit new. It's slightly different than Ashton, and you know, speaking of the regional, you know, effects, because we, as Tony mentioned, sitting here with us, we have the clock ticking on the Iranian deal, so to speak. Earlier this week, President Barack Obama revealed that the U.S. has put forward a framework, and you know, I'm doing quotation marks, to a forward plan to meet Iran's nuclear ambitions or nuclear plans. We don't really know what's in that framework, but is that, you know, going too soon, too fast? And is there a deal in the making, or, you know, does that not stand a chance now?
Well, for months, we've been trying to assess, you know, what could happen.
Right.
First, the July 20th deadline, which of course came
Passed.
and went.
Yeah.
And now coming up to this new deadline, what the options are, what could happen. And it seemed that the most likely scenario actually was another extension, because we were seeing almost zero concessions as far as Iran's positions were concerned. Iran was basically saying no, no, no to every issue on the table. And we've seen increasing, actually, concessions coming from the P5+1, not from Iran, and it didn't look like there was much common ground. It looked like an extension. Right now, I would say, especially taking into account that they are going to a summit on Sunday.
On Sunday.
And this will be Kerry, Zarif, and Catherine Ashton. They might have something in their pocket right now. But my best guess would be that there's not yet a comprehensive deal. I don't think there's any chance that they've cleared up the whole issue of the weaponization, the famous PMDs. We just heard from Amano at the end of October when he spoke at Brookings, saying that the Iranians are not cooperating on the weaponization questions. But what could happen is that we will hear that there are some issues on which they have reached agreement.
Right.
For example, this whole issue of the Russian deal that just came out in the New York Times 3 days ago, that there is some proposal, tentative proposal, for Iran to send out most of its low-enriched uranium stockpile to Russia.
Reminiscent
in order to,
of the Syrian deal.
Well, it's reminiscent
yeah.
in the sense that Russia will be taking a major role in the solution. And of course, this is very good news as far as Russia is concerned. It will help them politically in terms of their role in the Middle East, and economically. It will have huge economic benefits for Russia. So we might hear that there, even though Iran immediately denied this, there might be pockets of agreement and then an extension in order to deal with some of the more thorny issues like the PMDs, to get a real comprehensive deal. And that might explain why there's this dynamic sort of going into a summit.
Into a summit, speaking of that summit, that is taking place on Sunday and Monday, this upcoming Sunday, Monday.
Yes.
Kerry, Zarif, and Ashton. Ashton's still very much in the play, even though, you know, Federica Mogherini.
They made the decision
that Ashton stays with the Iranian thing. Okay. And that's happening early this week, Sunday, Monday. Time will tell, of course, what comes out of it. But Emily, I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of you in the next several weeks as the clock is ticking. Thank you for being with us this morning. Tony, you're not released. You'll be back in the next hour. And when we get back, all about the Photo House, the unofficial Tel Aviv archive shop with rare photos of Israel. It's beautiful stuff. Stick with us. First, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. back. It is still Friday, November 7th, 2014. This is still the morning edition. Last I checked, I am still Yael Levi, and thank you for staying with us. Because the next story is one of my favorite. It combines family, memories, photos, and history. The Piro Photo House is located at the heart of Tel Aviv. It's a shop that anybody who grew up here knows very, very well, and that would mean me. It's one of Israel's most valuable and monumental private archives of historical photographs that was established in 1940. And the unique archive consists of over 1 million negatives taken by photographer Rudy Weissenstein, highlighting the spirit, the atmosphere, the people, and pivotal historical events of Israel from the 1930s through the 1970s. We're joined in studio by the Photo House owner, Ben Peter. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And before we talk to you, let's take a look at the beautiful report of Lauren Tulila's about the shop and what it means.
My name is Ben Peter. I'm the owner of the Photo House, a very old archive shop of 1 million photographs from the 30s in Tel Aviv. So my grandparents established this place in 1936. My grandfather was a photographer, and he came to Israel with a camera and started to document everything that he saw for many, many years, and my grandma helped him, and together they opened this shop. I think he was recruited by the authorities that managed the Zionist movement. So they asked him and wanted him to create a certain vision of Israel. I think he wanted to show that Israel is not so different than Europe, or could be as same as Europe. So this is how the early years of our archive looked like. After my grandfather died in '92, my grandma was here alone, and after a few years I joined her, and I learned everything from her, how to continue to preserve the family business and the family heritage. Memory is a very complicated thing. National Library of Israel has recently joined to the big struggle of ours to save the negatives, because negatives that are more than 70 years old are in a very danger of extinction. So with a specialist, takes from the old drawers the negatives and scan them one by one. The light in this photograph is perfect. It's a suitcase of a new immigrant, and they're moving it from one place to another. And the two guys are perfect. The suitcase, everything is in the place, and it also has a story, in my head, that who this suitcase belongs to. Are they together, or they're just moving the suitcase? Who's coming? Who's the new guest? The shop is a place where a lot of tourists come to see, because it's like a real piece of history. And when you enter the shop, you can really feel time that stood still, and many people really like it. So this is my job, to preserve what my grandparents did for the next generations.
As said, we are joined in studio by Ben Peter from the shop that we are. First of all, thank you for being with us. It's beautiful stuff. I love that shop. And not very many people know that it almost didn't survive, right? There was a big brouhaha. How many, what was it, 2 years ago?
Almost 4 years ago. We were supposed to be back already. But unfortunately, there's just a hole in the ground now, and nothing is going to...
And that's it. And your grandmother. Your grandmother is the force behind the shop before, because it was in a house that, was demolished. There's a hole in the ground. Where's the shop now?
On Chernichovsky, 5 Chernichovsky Street. Just a minute from the Carmel Market. It's actually a 5-minute walk from the previous place where we used to be for 70 years. But my grandma, she passed away 2 months after we moved there. At least she got to see it, and she loved it. And she gave me her blessing to be there, to continue the family business, to take responsibility. So that's what I'm doing.
And your grandmother, who was the force behind keeping that shop alive. I'm wondering, because you're a young man, how old are you?
I'm 38 almost.
No, that's still very young. I should know. But that said, you committed your life to preserving this piece of family heritage.
Yes.
Is there a lot of support coming from national institutions to help preserve as you said in the piece, there are a lot of negatives, right? Like
Yeah.
thousands of negatives, no?
You're right. We have almost 1 million negatives there.
1 million negatives?
1 million negatives.
That are all about the history of...
No. Mostly are portraits.
Portraits.
And like around 200,000 negatives only are history.
Wow, 200,000.
Yes. And we scanned with the help of the National Library around 20,000.
20,000 from the 200,000. A tenth of it.
Yes.
And I think we need to explain to people that it's a major amount of money to transfer old negatives.
It's a very complicated process. You need to take the original negative, you need to really take care of it and do it one by one. Bring a professionalist who will sit with it and scan it. It takes time and it's very
explain
expensive.
to me, you know, because I think the importance of what's in those negatives. When you're talking about like the 200,000 negatives of history of Israel, what's in them?
All the events that happens here, all the establishment of new settlements, for example. My grandfather was the official photographer of the Declaration of the State of Israel, so we have the series of that. He was escorting the Israeli Philharmonic Orchestra for 40 years, so we have a lot of concert. We have daily life in Tel Aviv, Herzliya, all the big cities, everything that happened, news. He was a journalist, you know. So and then he became an artist, and he started to document stuff for his own, out of his own curiosity and interest. So it's varied. He was a very unusual photographer because he specialized in many techniques. He used to have, I think, 10 cameras, used to go out, used to take photos in the studio. So it's very, very interesting.
From
what we have there.
portraits to street scenes to, and spanning from, if it's the 30s through the 70s, we're looking at nearly half a decade of everything and anything that this country went through.
And also portraits of all the prime ministers and important people that used to come to our studio, because there was a rumor that if you're taking your portrait there in the studio and they'll put it in the window in the display, then you'll get elected afterwards. So our window was so amazing. And sometimes we try to restore it, and we do every 3 months, we do a studio event in the shop. We bring people, we take the portraits, and then we publish it, and it's very, for me, it's very fun to continue, you know, the heritage
of the portraits. I mean, needless to say, I'm wondering if people come and take a picture in your shop right now, if they will be elected prime minister. And
But you know, today it's not common anymore to use. I mean, you don't go to take your photo anymore, right? You use your phone.
Yes.
So it's very unique. You sit, you get dressed up. You get, you know, they put makeup on your face, you have to pose, and people are not used to it, and maybe people are even a little bit missing that.
Yeah,
And it's fascinating for me as a photographer to see how people react to the camera, what it's taking out of them, because it's not the iPhone stuff anymore.
It's not just the selfie.
Yes,
exactly.
it's not just the selfie.
It's a ceremony.
Yes.
There's something more. You know, there's something more, you know, exciting about it.
Exactly.
And, you know, I should hope that we should go and revert back to that. The shop is on Chernichovsky now, and the hope is to move back to the old location. I think you're doing amazing work preserving your family's heritage. This is beautiful stuff. Thank you, Ben. And, you know, I'm happy for you to stay in the studio as we move.
Wow, you turned snake-like.
I turned snake-like as we move.
Wow.
Tony Grant with This Is Something Completely Different. The web review, the viral spiral, and anything and everything.
Where the culture pops and the internet stops.
Yes.
For a brief moment. Like a photographic moment.
See? It all interlaces.
Yes.
This is very intellectual stuff coming
It is.
Yes, go on.
Did you hear about Stephen Fry?
I know of Stephen Fry.
Yeah, he is considered to be a British national treasure.
He is a British.
Yes, he is. Well, he very vocally, publicly quit Twitter temporarily due to, we're not sure why. Could it be because he's filming Star Wars, or that's the wrapping is about to wrap?
There's another Star Wars, I forget.
Yes, and it said apparently there's some safety issues, and he was advised that it's not safe for him to tweet from wherever it is that he has been tweeting from.
Because they're filming on Mars.
I don't know. Maybe I thought it was in Tunisia, or that was back way back when.
The trilogy, the original ones. Yeah.
Which is a great country, but I don't know. I don't know where they're filming it, but anyway.
Tatooine.
Yeah, way up in the skies.
Way up in the sky. So Stephen Fry is off Twitter because
at least
he
until next month. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There we
so,
go.
and I was thinking, how dangerous could a country be? I mean, seriously, could any country be as dangerous as the state of Florida actually is in real life?
Nothing.
Okay,
Nothing.
Because, if you're in Orlando,
yes,
apparently there's a triple amputee on the loose. Yes. I mean, actually, he's armed.
The phrase, the triple amputee on the loose.
I want to say he's armed and dangerous, but that might be a stretch.
That's a slur. Yes, it's not going to work.
And this is actually a quadruple. Actually, I don't know. Armless, footless guy pulled up to an ATM in his dad's Camry after apparently shooting his parents in their home. This is
my God.
Yeah, it's an awful story.
But
and
it is Florida.
I don't know if there's any update, but they can't find him. Now, this is the problem. He can't walk very fast.
Sorry.
But he's a person.
That was always my argument about Osama bin Laden. I'm not kidding. How can you not find a very tall man who's connected to a dialysis?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. How hard can that be?
Yeah. I mean, he's got to be on someone's radar.
Exactly. Yeah. Somewhere they're the point. Okay. Well, so if you're in Florida, in Orlando right now, people, please look for the amputee.
Take cover.
Yes. Okay.
Anyway, hopefully they resolve it. On a more. I spoke of Britain. There is a Christmas advert. Which is Christmas is just around the corner, really. Yeah, which is it's a hit in Britain. Has to do with penguins, actually. There we go.
There we go. Do we have sound for this? Yes.
It's adorable, and of course that's the cover of a John Lennon song there.
Ben, this is the sticky corner.
I know.
Yes,
I know.
No.
But it's so cute. I forgot the department store's name. I think it's John Lewis.
Go get me a penguin.
I know.
Yes, I know. I'm dressed like one.
You look great in black.
Thank you.
But Christmas, it's
around the corner. That is around the corner.
That is frightening.
A frightening
stuff.
Thought.
Yeah.
A frightening thought to all us Jews.
Not as frightening as buying a Christmas present for Rihanna. Yes, people are still talking about her shock interview in which she reveals some of her Christmas wishes and other things. I am not going to reveal the actual Christmas gift that she seeks to get.
Can you hint?
No, but I will say that what is revealed what is revealed is that she makes an amazing mac and cheese. And if she were a piece of jewelry, what would it be? A choker.
I'm choking
myself. And I said way back when she was wearing those chokers, I said the choker is having a moment in terms of bling.
Right.
It's coming back, and she is bringing it back. And also, she loves Michael Bolton.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Did that make you leave her Navy? Because, come on.
It kind of did, but I'm getting a sample of Rogue Man, the new fragrance for Rihanna for men.
Yeah, for men.
So now I'm back in the Navy.
You're back in the Navy.
Yeah.
Michael Bolton.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes. That's almost like, it's like, okay.
It's like the Muzak Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the other day I thought, what is more interesting than Meryl Streep? And
absolutely nothing.
Nothing. But Christmas, of course. Do you know that she's going to be in a filmed version of Into the Woods?
No.
Yeah. She's going to play, I guess, the witch or something.
Wow.
Yeah, this, of course, based on Stephen Sondheim's musical, which I actually was never a huge fan of, but it's a very popular musical anyway.
Now, very few people know that she's actually also a singer.
I mean, well, there was a Mamma Mia. And
did all her own singing.
Yeah.
See, aren't you glad you came?
Yeah. And and when I see that picture, I think Anna Wintour. But, in a good...
serious, you can't make me laugh today. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, on a serious note, Sophia Loren.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, she has dished on the infamous 1957 Jane Mansfield photo, where she is ogling Mansfield's assets. Now, the reason is...
It's very good we have Ben Peter here, who is an aficionado of photograph. This one's a classic.
It is a classic.
Come on.
I actually hadn't seen it before.
No, I have to tell you. And the train of thought that goes is either, woman, please cover yourself up, Or I wish I had those.
Yeah. No,
right?
and
I wish I had those.
It's the former. It's the former because Sophie Loren said that she was afraid that that literally her boobs were going to fall into her plate. We're going to fall into her plate.
Yeah.
And
wow.
And Jane Mansfield, I don't think a lot of people know. I mean, she was called like the working man's Marilyn Monroe. Yeah.
Because she was more approachable, a little bit more approachable,
Yeah.
The working class Marilyn Monroe.
She died very young, actually.
In a very bad way, no? Tragically.
Yeah, it involved vehicles.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But anyway, so that's interesting stuff. And on also a similar note, Salma Hayek was also in a sort of a cleavage moment the other day.
Do we have Salma Hayek?
Yeah, and this is actually, she's on the set of a movie called Sausage Party, which is an animated film. Filming. Okay, I'm sorry. It's an animated film with James Franco and Seth Rogen.
And sadly, we're going to have to leave you in Sausage Party. It's about food. Tony, thank you. Ben Peter, lovely having you with us.
Thank you.
When we get back, lots more about sports, NBA for that matter of fact. But first, ladies and gentlemen, the news. And thank you for staying with us. It is November 7th, and winter is not around the corner where we're at. Stu, you're joined with us, I-24 News sports correspondent Michael Friedman, who's a breath of summer.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm losing it at the end of the show. I know. Darling, how are you? What do you have for us?
Fantastic. This week we had some of the top athletes in sports do amazing things. So, the greatness was shown all around the world. So
this is a piece about greatness.
Greatness and the top athletes of the week.
Of the week, let's take a look.
This week featured many top athletes from different sports. So who's your favorite athlete? Carmelo Anthony, Novak Djokovic, Caroline Wozniacki, or Lewis Hamilton? The Formula One race at the U.S. Grand Prix was another heated event filled with speed. The talented Lewis Hamilton won his 5th consecutive Formula One race and increased his lead in the Drivers' Championship. Despite this injury-packed competition, the British racer was able to get through cleanly and lift the trophy of the 17th round of the 2014 Formula One World Championship. And on to the NBA. It didn't take long for Carmelo Anthony to pass 20,000 career points as his Knicks beat the Hornets 96-93. The basketball superstar gave his team the go-ahead basket with 1:23 remaining in the game. The Knicks forward came up again big with an important rebound with seconds left at Madison Square Garden. As we're coming towards the end of the tennis season, Novak Djokovic is looking to finish at the top of the ATP ranking. The #1 player in the world beat Kei Nishikori in the semifinals 6-2 and 6-3 to set up the finals against Milos Raonic. It didn't take the 27-year-old Serbian long as he brushed past the Canadian in 1 hour and 23 minutes, taking the Paris Masters 6-2 and 6-3. After this win, Djokovic became the 5th active player to record 600 tour-level wins. Djokovic, who did not drop a set during the whole week, claimed the 20th Masters title of his career and won the indoor tournament for the 3rd time. There was another tennis player in action this week, but it would be off the court. The Danish star Caroline Wozniacki completed her first ever New York City Marathon in a time of 3 hours and 27 minutes. The tennis star was met at the finish line by her friend and tennis rival, Serena Williams. The former world #1 raised over $81,500 for Team for Kids. Despite never running more than 13 miles before, she was able to push through to the end. Each of these athletes continue to show the world their talents. Feel free to choose the one you like the most, or maybe you prefer to choose them all. The heart is big enough to love 4 stars at the same time.
Wow, tall men looking healthy.
And one beautiful woman.
And exactly. Lewis Hamilton. Okay, talk to me. Formula. I never get that sport. That's just that's men's sport.
They're
racing.
They're going in a circle a few times.
Okay.
So this guy, Lewis Hamilton, he won it in 2008, and he's looking to finish strong again with the year ending. And his teammate, who's just a little bit behind him, is Nico Rosberg. But as of now, it stands that Lewis Hamilton will be the number one at the end of the year.
He's taking it again.
He's taking it.
And the Formula One race is something that's huge all around the world, right? I mean,
internationally, people love it.
Yeah.
I don't think has hit as much here. Although they did have a race in Jerusalem. They had some.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Cars racing in Jerusalem?
Yeah.
That's all we need in Jerusalem, I think. Right? We need cars racing.
Some more cars.
More cars, yes. Okay, wow. It's important to keep your sense of humor in the Middle East. And we're moving on to, the milestone of Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, 20,000 points. And he's young. He's only 30 years old. So if you look at some of the great players that have currently, there's Kobe Bryant, who's 36.
Yeah, I was always wondering, how old can you reach in basketball? You could be like in your late 30s, essentially.
If you look back at Ray Allen today, he's 39.
Wow.
So there are some players that reach, mid,
I at 39
late 30s.
couldn't climb a flight of stairs. But
I don't know how these athletes do it.
Yeah.
It's quite impressive. So for
but
baseball, maybe.
Baseball, maybe. Yes.
It's quite possible.
Okay, but the NBA had an exciting week in many ways, right?
And it's the opening week. Everyone's excited to see, all the players back. LeBron and David Blatt, of course,
and
coaching
LeBron, who did we see in the piece that shot that amazing, three-pointer? Was that a three-pointer? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, it was a three-pointer against them, though, and they lost.
I know my basketball. Was that a three-pointer?
You're speaking Chinese.
There's that little circle outside, and if it's outside, then you get the three.
I know my basketball. Okay. Yeah. My father actually wanted a boy, but so that was who shot that? That was LeBron. No.
Oh, Carmelo Anthony.
Carmelo Anthony that was the guy. That's the one to watch.
Who hit the 20,000th point.
Oh my lord!
Exciting.
And the most exciting thing this week in sports for you, what was that? Pick one.
I have to let the viewers choose which one they like the best.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? No, but come on, you must have had one. I'm going to put you on the spot.
I'll tell you this. I was very impressed with Wozniacki.
Why?
The fact that she just ran the marathon without much training. I personally don't think I can run a marathon without at least 4 months training. She went out 3 nights, or I think 3 nights prior on Halloween till 4 in the morning, partied. So
no, come on.
Wozniacki was partying and then ran a marathon. So she's this tennis phenom,
Sounds like me, but without running.
Well, without the running, I know.
Yeah.
I will do. I'll do the partying part of it.
But not the marathon.
The marathon I will
a few days later.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And she won, but it wasn't like
she did it in 3 hours and 27 minutes, which is no
yeah, that's
small
not.
feat.
That's not a small. Yeah.
I mean,
wow.
She was, playing tennis all year long. And then just said, I'm going to run the marathon.
Yeah, okay.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, that's great. It happens to me every morning.
They asked her, are you going to, quit tennis and move to, marathon running? And she's like, no, I think this was it for me.
For the one. Okay. And moving on, though, to my favorite sport, and that's the rich man's sport, tennis. Yeah.
Djokovic.
Very,
very exciting.
How many years has Djokovic been he's kind of ruling the scene, hasn't he?
He's been on top of the game. He's a phenomenal player. Every year it's you got Djokovic, Nadal, Federer. So with Federer and Djokovic coming towards the end, there was the question if Federer would be able to pass him. But with Djokovic's big win here, it appears as if he's going to be able to finish the year as the #1 player. He's looking exciting. They have one more tour in London, so
and he's basically considered to be the one to take that as well.
Absolutely.
Anything and everything we need to know about sports, and as we said before, it always goes beauty before brains. So we're going to move to the brains.
Why not?
And I'm trying to embarrass people. It's not working. Yes. And of course, we have Chen Lieberman with anything and everything cultural and pop and popping and whatnot out there.
Right, but I'm staying with sports. Not that I know much about sports, but I do know about feuds. And this story is hilarious. Michael Jordan and President Obama are in a feud.
I don't know anything about this, but I heard something.
Yes, exactly. You heard something, so now I'm going to tell you all about it. So yeah, if Obama doesn't have enough trouble as it is, now Michael Jordan is saying that Obama is, sorry for my language, shitty golfer. He said it in an interview. Can you beat me when I say that?
That Obama is no, I can't say. Can I say crappy? No, we can try all these words. Crappy.
Yeah, crappy.
Not a very good one.
Not a very good golfer.
Yeah.
He said it in an interview with a friend of Obama's, and he was asked who would he want to play with in his dream team, and turns out that Obama is not one of those people. And he's saying, I'm not saying he's not a good politician. I'm just saying he's a beep golfer. And it's, it sounds like an esoteric
it's not.
comment.
We love it. Yeah.
But in America, being good in golf, like that's what makes you a successful American.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
You have to know golf.
And not only that, I gotta say, I mean, first of all, it used to be, and you will agree with me, it used to be the white man's sport.
Right.
Until
I think it's still
Tiger. Exactly.
Well, it still is the white man's hobby.
Right.
But when it comes to winning competitions,
yeah, exactly. I mean,
the African Americans are doing it better.
Much better.
Well,
usually, much better in everything.
But you don't see them in the rich man's courts,
exactly.
right? You
in
don't
the
see them in the clubs.
In the clubs, bingo.
Exactly. So for Obama, it was very important to be a good golfer. It is part of his image.
But the image of head of a company, president, must golf. Usually have exactly.
And you know what?
Tea time. All the guys, they go out and they golf, and that's how they do business.
Exactly.
So it's
and
important.
why is golf a good sport for that? Because you can talk.
What did Obama say in return?
So he did comment, which is a weird thing, because why would he even have the time to comment about this story? But he was, yes. Well,
which actually is quite frightening that he does.
Yeah,
yes.
He was interviewed for a local Wisconsin radio station before the midterm elections, and he was asked about Michael Jordan, and he said, "Well, I don't think he's well informed about my skills because we never played together." He was really defensive about it.
God.
But then he said, "Yeah, of course I'm not as good of a player as Michael Jordan, but if I had the time to practice twice a day for the last 15 years, maybe that won't be the case. That would not be the case." So he was, he was sarcastic about it. And then he said that Michael Jordan should worry more about the Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets, that's his NBA team, and they're not doing well this year. So he was. I
wonder if Michael Jordan tweeted back, and President Obama should worry more a little about foreign policy.
Exactly.
And then we can have that back and forth. Yeah. Nice.
But I love this feud. And talking about golf and its social implications, there's a new research showing that CEOs that are playing golf earn salaries that are 17% higher than the ones who don't play golf.
Yeah,
and it's one of the remnants of the old Anglo-Saxon society, exclusive
kings,
clubs, right?
The hierarchy of the upper echelon of society as the ones below.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That's why I said, because golf is, the rich man's sport in many ways.
And how do women participate in that?
If we wouldn't go out and play golf, I don't think our salary would be,
We're trying. I mean, many women in the business world, in the corporate world, are trying to, become part of these exclusive clubs. But I don't think that men want to play with them because they wouldn't know how to deal with it.
Because it's still a divided world. And I have to ask you this because you're a sports guy. I got to say something about golf. I know it's the rich man's sport and everything. Have you ever watched a game of golf?
No.
Oh, God, it's the most boring thing.
I tried to play golf.
No, it's like watching grass grow. Seriously. No, it's like watching grass grow. It's awful.
But people love it. People are very into it.
People are educated to love it.
Educated to love it,
It's a cultural thing. You know who's changing it a little bit? Mark Zuckerberg. Because he's not playing golf. And everybody's like, why is he not playing golf?
the most important, richest, web guy not playing golf because,
Because he didn't have to climb up the ladder. Yeah. He just he parachuted his way into it.
Not graduated from,
so he's like, I'm not playing golf.
I know.
Maybe I'll do it on a
Facebook
I'm not playing
golf, but I'm not Mark Zuckerberg. And...
Yes, okay, so AC/DC drummer Phil Rudd, he was arrested yesterday for attempting to procure murder and possession of drugs. Yeah, very surprising. So, I mean, it's a hard rock band.
For higher charge?
Yeah, he was charged with attempting to kill 2 men, but this morning the charge for attempting to kill them was dropped. So now there are 2 charges, one for threatening to kill and still possession of drugs, but that's not
he's
news.
A rocker, exactly.
So after he was arrested yesterday, released on bail, I guess his lawyers shook the other lawyers all night.
Yeah, I was about to say, but attempted murder. I was like, well, I'll give you some free deals. Come on, free concerts.
They played a game of golf last night.
And we still don't know much we still don't know much about this this story. Who are the other participants and characters in this story? But we know that the major charges were dropped, and AC/DC are putting out a new album after 6 years. So yeah, they're still on it. They're still trying.
You're still on it.
Yeah.
What to say? Is this a campaign?
So you know, I don't want to be too cynical. I'm wondering. I mean, because they said there's no negative publicity. He does look a bit disturbed in that. You know, not in that video, but him standing there. You know, hearing the charges. He was so good looking. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it made like this whole story made me Google him in his
that he's good looking?
like younger
he was
years. Yeah, he was good looking.
Not anymore.
But no, but
not like you, honey.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm married. It's okay.
But I mean, there is such thing as negative publicity.
There is negative, and this one.
I think that would match that category.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
What else do you have for us?
Okay, so Taylor Swift is new. I know. I'm sorry.
No, I'm glad you're bringing this up because I'm incomplete.
I don't understand it either. I mean, she's not only cute. You know, if I say she's cute, then I'm being a sexist pig because
I know.
She's allowed to be cute.
She's cute,
but it doesn't mean she's not intelligent. She is, but still. If you heard her lyrics, it's not...
No, the thing with Taylor Swift, I have to make a confession. Very late last night, as I was coughing, I pulled up a video. I was like, I want to see this woman sing. Yeah, I know. I want to see her sing. So I pulled the cough aside. Yeah, but...
Yeah, what's the big deal? So she's now the first artist in history to sell a third consecutive album in a week, 3 million sales in a week. Third consecutive album that reaches that record. So she's the first artist in history to do that.
I mean, it's not Madonna.
That's Taylor Swift. So, I mean, and the thing is, it happened after...
We're looking at a video now. Oh, damn, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All the time we have, but we'll let you decide, you know, how...
They already decided. They're buying the album.
Decided. So you and I, we know... We don't know what we're talking about. But that's it for us, people. I-24 News. That was Taylor Swift. This was Chen Lieberman. And, of course, Michael Friedman. And you are joining us on Monday morning for another edition of your, morning news, because you should. And that was it for us this week. Thank you for being with us. Taylor, take it away. Yeah.
I can finish every...
I literally...
You come around again and say, baby, I miss you and I swear I'm gonna change. Trust me, remember how that lasted for a day? I say I hate you, we break up, you call me, I love you.